Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're taking a look at a mid-shadow. We haven't looked at a mid-shadow deck for a little while and it's starting to come back into popularity as a pretty good deck. I mean, I'm not sure how the meta has fluctuated now. I mean, at first, a couple days ago, Daria was a lot more popular. In the last couple of days, that's dropped off a little bit, at least when this video was made. And I'm seeing a lot more Sword than say Daria decks around, and Shadow's picked up a bit more as well, so those three decks are kind of the ones that are floating around most consistently on ladder, but I'm sure again that will change very quickly. So by the time this video does come out to you guys, that may have changed, but it doesn't change that this deck is still very solid. So this is basically your pretty standard mid-shadow. I mean, there's nothing absolutely crazy in it. You're still running the 3 Prince, the combos of Ceres, Underworld, all that. The only thing you run is 3 Demon Lord again. I only have 2 and I can't be stuffed making a third one because I just don't see the point or the worth of doing it for me at the moment. But you can run a third one and you'd quite easily just drop one Lyrial Archer or something else from the bottom end and bump it up. But other than that, we'll get right into the games and check it out. Okay, first up we have Sword as our opponent. Mid-Shadow vs Sword is usually in Mid-Shadow's favour, and I don't think that has really changed this day and age. It's pretty much the same, we're just slightly more aggressive with just a little bit better of an engine to deal with threats, meaning that Sword can't quite get the edge out over us in most situations. So we are going to get to throw basically whatever we want out. Going into turn 2, I mean, at best, they're going to play a 1-drop, which is worthless against this deck, just because we do have most of our 2 standard followers as 2/2s, and nearly... So, that's going to be pretty easy to deal with in that situation, and they don't play anything at all, so a free Skull Ring drop. Our board is basically infinite now. What are you going to do against a Skull Ring? I mean, Mars, pretty solid, but is basically an even trade with this Belenus, which just gives me pure value at this point. And I can actually just aim to draw cards with Demon Eater. Probably not the best card to really use, just because it puts me at risk of pulling Demon Eater from my ring if they do decide to attack into Demon Eater. But overall, I think it's solid enough that I can just throw out this Lyrial as well and kind of balance out my board a little bit. So they are going to trade. They do decide to trade with the Lyrial, which makes sense. I mean, the evolve on the Lyrial would be way too strong against them. Luckily, we summon a Lyrial instead of a Belenus. I probably would have preferred the Belenus, but I think that's still pretty okay. With a Necro Assassin, we can remove this Gwaine and really have no issue. Especially since we have another Lyrial, Black Swan, Skull Ring. We've got more options than we possibly could need at this point in the game. And seeing a Albert just get thrown to the board like this, ugh, that's gotta feel bad as a Sword player. I know whenever I have to throw Albert like that, I always feel quite bad with myself. But we do get our own Lyrial Archer again, this time pinging the 1 damage, leaving up our own Storm damage Lyrial, mainly so I can use this 4-body as a ram, and then just use Skull Ring to fill our board again, I guess. And with them at 10 health, and us with a really solid board, Demon Lord actually has some potential going into the next turn. Although they still do have a pretty good chance of dealing with everything I've got here, so we do have to be a little bit careful of that. Especially now they got free evolves. Ugh, that feels very nasty right now. Don't want to have to deal with that ever again. Luckily they only do get the single trade, and with the evolve point, Demon Lord will close out this game very quickly for a quite comfortable 11 damage. That's why Mid-Shadow is still just as good as it once was, because no matter what you do to Shadow, as long as they can summon some skeletons in early game, you really can't, you know, stop them. Next up we have poor little Rune, who's going to get stomped. That's all I got to say for him. Of course, Rune, not the worst class. Of course, they're going to have some problems with certain decks. Of course, Daria at the moment is probably the strongest of the Rune decks currently. I mean, Dirt Rune is still super good, but I feel like it's being outshone by Daria. at least as of making these videos. As I've mentioned in the past, these videos aren't made daily, they are actually made a little bit in advance, so usually they're made the week of the video's release. So normally you're getting, you know, information that's relevant to the week, not really day to day, so just keep that in mind sometimes when watching the videos, so you guys know that sometimes the meta will shift within a day. For example, the meta now doesn't include as many Daria as it did just 2 days ago. So when I make this video, it's just not quite as relevant as some of the previous videos, but showcasing the decks I think is the more important part to this. So what do we got? Lurching Corpse, pretty nice. We get to trade the Belinus, well, deal with the Belinus, sorry, to the face. They're not really going to risk a huge trade here. That Owl though is a really pain in the ass. I'm assuming they're going for Ginger Rune, that would be my guess, because they're running so many neutrals, and you wouldn't run that many neutrals unless you were going for something like Ginger Rune. We do decide to go for as good of a trade as I can get using this Demon Eater. Does hit the 2-2 unfortunately. I really wanted that 5-5 to be hit, but I do decide to out the Lurching Corpse for damage, just because I know that's going to be pretty difficult to deal with, and if they spend the evolve on this Owl here to do 7 to face, and then this Pollux has to just kind of sit here, doesn't it? It can't really do too much else. So going into my next turn, I have a few options, I guess. I really need to deal with this 7-6 and this 6-4. Belinus does that pretty well, being able to quite easily trade into the 6-4 while pinging for 1 damage. Not that that's going to matter after a Demon Eater turn. Actually, probably a Soul Squasher actually. Better play. Using the Soul Squasher after the Belinus trade, a bit better than having to use my Lurching Corpse that's already used its evolve point, and I get to save my Demon Eater for probably a lesser card. Or just a better situation like this one. So it looks like they are aiming for that 4 damage to my face, putting me within the 6 lethal range, as close as they can get me. Not so lucky for them, that's not going to really do much. I mean, a Demon Eater this turn draws me a couple more cards. Catacomb would be crazy. Skull Ring crazy. Do decide to go with the Ceres just because I'm worried about dying this next turn. Just in case, I didn't want to take too big of a risk. So the Extra Healing is just a really nice bonus, and kind of forces them to have to do something to block this damage. And they do with Hector. Hector is probably their ideal block at this point. Unlucky for them though, Demon Lord opens up lethal. Well, actually more than enough than lethal, really. Ceres itself can take out this 4-4, and then I can just go face with 8 damage. So, really not much they could have done there. And last but not least, we have another Sword player. As I said, Sword is probably the more popular deck at the moment, and the one that you're most commonly going to come up against, at least from when I was doing this video. So, Soul Squasher, Ceres, and Demon Lord, all pretty average, honestly. Don't really have any reason to keep them all. I decided to keep the Soul Squasher just because it gives me something to throw out in the early game if I have to. Otherwise, it's worth saving it for something like, I just don't really know at this point, probably an Albert with the Evolve stats or anything like that. And luckily we get a Goblin, I mean, put something on our board, but we're still going to be at a pretty heavy disadvantage because we didn't get anything on turn 2 that was really solid. And as you can see, this 1-3 is now really difficult for me to deal with, and my only option is to throw Belinus to the board, trade my Goblin in at least a little bit to make it a little easier to remove, and that was pretty much it. Especially now that Mars has been dropped. Ugh. I feel like my life just got a little harder right there. So I do decide just to go face and use the Necro Assassin to trade, mainly because I have a chance at killing both of them either way. Unfortunately, I don't get that lucky. If I could have hit the Mars and then hit the little guy, I would have had a much better game than just hitting the little guy. And double Mars, okay. A little bit of a pain in the ass, but we're almost there. I mean, I could clear this Mars, which is probably what I should do. Do decide to go with the Goblin and the Necro Assassin, although I probably should have went Goblin, Demon Eater, Little Soul Squasher. I think that would have been better, Although we still ended up in a positive position either way, and I get to hold on to my Soul Squasher to deal with a bigger evolve, I guess. It was just a bit of an iffy move. I definitely could have secured a better game with that lethal, with that little Soul Squasher, sorry. But then I probably wouldn't have been able to deal with this as easy as I am now, so why not? Also, probably should have just dropped the Peacock first and done the evolve, got the extra draw. But not the biggest deal in the world, I guess. I don't want to overdraw either, but I guess that's not going to happen easily. I don't have enough cards to overdraw. So we get a couple of draws. I did decide to leave the Soul Squasher up, which I feel iffy about, but that extra draw I think is what I really wanted. Just so I can start really pressuring them here. So we get another Demon Eater. This time using it on the 2-1. 1-2, sorry. I made a mistake just because I forgot to attack. I should have dealt the extra 1 damage. Lucky this game didn't come down to 1 damage lethal difference, or I would have been pretty upset about that. After all, only human. Some people make mistakes. I'm one of those people. It happens. So, Arthur, Night King, yeah. It's one of those moments where they're just flooding me out, not really letting me do anything. Dealing with my board really effectively. It's kind of sad, actually. So, they do go for the Arthur Evolve. I don't really have anything to deal with this, at least nothing effective. I can't use Demon Lord to clear 2 things, I can't use anything really, so Black Swan is my actual only play here. It's going to remove the 2-2 and it's going to weaken everything else, but I am still going to take 8 damage next turn, minimum, if they go face.
Don't let the light blind you.
They do get the Quick Blader and the Cthulhu. But then they just didn't do anything for some reason. I never understood this. They should have went face. They could have done a lot of different things. Didn't really question it too much. I think they dragged out their entire turn, whether they got busy disconnecting. I don't know what happened. But I'm going to take advantage of it and be in my favor. I mean, I had a chance at making a comeback either direction, because this turn would have played out very, very similar regardless of what they did. I just wouldn't have had as much damage with that extra 2. So honestly, not that it really affected the match in the bigger scheme of things. They would have got a bit more damage, but they probably still wouldn't have been in lethal range of me. So, and that rounds up our mid-shadow video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you want to check out this deck list, you will find it in the description below. You can hit that like button and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. And I will catch you guys next time. See ya.